Hey Lot, it's Mr. Hanson. Um, we're starting our week 2 online. Um, this week we get to study more poetry, and we're going to focus particularly on sound. So this is our only thing that we're going to do, so we'll ease into this. Um, if you go on the assignment here, guys, you'll see, oh, it's still saving. An assignment called Sound and Poetry. This is under your online um, poetry section. I have a list of materials here for you. The first thing that you're going to want to look at is this PowerPoint. I'll just kind of breeze through this and kind of highlight some focus I want you to see. This is an interesting story about sound that I'll let you look at your own. And I'll look at Roger Bubo in just a second. All right. Now, guys, poetry is not only meant to appeal only to the words, but there's supposed to be something delightful in the sound of it. No, poetry is not something that you just read dead on a page. It's something that's meant to be heard. In fact, it used to be not an uncommon practice before we had TVs and radios and smartphones and all that, that people would sit around and listen to each other read poems to each other. And a lot of it would cause delight to the ear. So there's a few things that we want to keep in mind that, certain sounds have a euphoric, a euphony component to it. So right here, this is something that words that kind of roll off the tongue that sound pleasant to the ear. You also have sounds where you have would be a cacophony. And so this is a word phony in both. All right. This one is going to be more of a harsh sound. It's harder to spit out. There's certain words that are a little bit harder to say, and they don't sound as pleasant to the ear. All right, we can skip over this one. All right. Other sound components that you want to be aware of is something called assonance. Now, assonance can be at the start of a word or in the middle of a word, but it's going to be a clustering of consonant sounds. So, for instance, you might hear the ah sound a lot, okay, or the I sound. And we have a long I and a short I. So the example here, animal serial killers. All right, you have the eh. That's an example of assonance. As you read through this poem, I think I have this as an example in our practice that you can look at, but this one, you'll probably notice that there is a predominant E sound. We also have what's called alliteration. This is something you want to be aware of. All right, alliteration is consonant sounds, consonant clusterings. So you might have a C sound or a D sound, any sort of things that are just going to be consonant. All right, it can be in the beginning, at the end, in the middle. So round and round the rugged rocks, the ragged rascal ran. The circus set up camp below the craggy cliffs. Now, in this case, guys, you want to keep in mind that alliteration is focused on, and assonance is focused on sound, not spelling. Circus and camp are not an example of alliteration because circus has a S sound while camp has a K. So you have camp, craggy, cliffs. That's where the alliteration is, but not in circus. We have internal, we can skip over some of this. Yeah, again, alliteration is not in the spelling, but in the sound. So no and nail is alliteration. No and key is not. We have the end. You can look through that. Oh, another fun sound that we have is what's called onomatopoeia. And I love to say that word. I think it's just one of those words that makes you happy to say, onomatopoeia. Now, what onomatopoeia is are words that are going to represent sounds that they make. All right, so zoom, like the sound a plane makes when it's flying overhead, or a bullet if it's going past your head, which hopefully you don't have to experience. A boom sound, woof, ping, ding dong, pitter patter. If you watch any old Adam West Batman series, you'll notice that every time he gets like punched in the face, someone holds up a flashcard that says bang, wham. All right. You see those in comics too. All right. So we use onomatopoeia to describe things. So like my car purred like a cat. It sounds better than when saying when I switched on to low gear, you could hear the engine. There's something nice about describing the sound. All right. Quickly here too, guys, there's just a few things. We have certain sounds like onomatopoeia that are just kind of fun to say. And the reason for that is there's just certain sounds that our mouths make that are just enjoyable to say. So, you know, when you watch the movie Elf, I love where Buddy comes and says, Francisco, that's fun to say. And it is kind of fun to say, Francisco. But there's other words that just kind of have a fun component to it for various reasons. So bulbous, butt, nincompoop, elf. A lot of times when we have explosive letters where you have to like pop things with your mouth, p, 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 b, 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 it just, for some reason, that has an enjoyable component to it. All right. Especially if you use it several times within one word. So like bulbous, okay, onomatopoeia. All right, I'll let you look at this poem by Walt Whitman, but there's some kind of humorous components to it just based on the words that he chooses. All right, there's a reason why, if you think about this, when you say a nursery rhyme, it resonates with you, it stays with you a long time. I could say, you know, I've done this year by year so I can remember them better, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some nursery rhymes that you could just spit out to me right now. So I said, hickory dickory dock. You could probably finish the sentence for me. And again, the reason for that is nursery rhymes are fun. They have the fun sound to it. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. All right, we also have what's called rough sounds. These are ones that are harder to say. There's certain, in English, for instance, there's a lot of sounds that only we use, and we have a high rate of consonant clustering. So we use a lot of consonant sounds together, which makes it very difficult for some languages to speak. Like if you get a Tongan trying to learn English, it can be kind of difficult because they always have like vowels between all their consonants if you look at their language closely, but we have a lot of groupings that are a lot of consonant sounds together. Okay, so crack, perverse, gruff, jerk. All right, I love this poem. This is a portion from Percy Shelley. It says, yellow, black, and pale, hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes, O thou who charitest to their dark wintry bed. You know, the word like charitist is kind of hard to say, and we talked about this before, but these kind of have a sound like you're walking on leaves. This is a poem about fall, so having that kind of crunchy, rough sound, I think, is supposed to reflect that. All right, we also have sexy sounds, which I would imagine anything that Morgan Freeman reads could fall into this category. Okay, but these are typically like smooth, that just kind of roll off the tongue really easy. Okay, sleek, meander, slide, groove. So like the V, S sounds, surf, winding. I'll let you look at these examples I have here. Okay, that's all I have on this PowerPoint. I will let you read this on your own, but I did want to look at one poem with you really quick before we leave. All right, so I have a list here of practices. You do not have to turn these into me. These are just practice, but I've written these out for you that you can look through. And I also have PowerPoints that will look at an example of dialect, and then I actually have a video of this man playing. So this poem is called Recital. And this is from John Updike, and this is after he saw this man Roger Bubo play a solo in Carnegie Hall in New York. So let me just read this poem to you quick. Roger Bubo gives recital on tuba. All right. Eskimos in Manitoba, Barracuda off Aruba, cock an ear when Roger Bobo starts to solo on the tuba. Men of every station, poobah, Nabob, Bozo, Toff, and Hobo cry in unison. Indubitably, there's simply nobody who oompas on the tubo solo quite like Roger Bubo. Now, this sounds kind of like a silly poem, but I think the sound component of it is what makes it so unique. If I was to imagine a poem that was being read by, like, what a tuba would sound like, this would probably be it. Now, I don't know if any of you guys play brass instruments, but when we talk about the embouchure of your mouth, you have to make it, you blow through your lips into the mouthpiece. And that's a lot of explosive sounds that we make when we say words like B and P. So when you look through this poem, there kind of has an oompa component to it, like you might hear on the bass part from a tuba. But I think just hearing the pooba example or Roger Bobo, I think that's supposed to reflect a little bit what a tuba might sound like when you read this poem. So it's kind of a unique little ditty that you can look at. Anyways, there's certainly more that you can look at with this, but I'll let you kind of look through some of these examples. A lot of these we've already looked at. These are fun little rhyming poems. And then, of course, I've read this one to you previously, but I think it deems fitting into this unit again. This is called To a Mouse by Robert Burns. I'll let you watch. I have a better recording than what I did for you in class, but Don Steele does an amazing job. And then also I have a solo of Roger Bobo. I called him Bubo. I forget when I do the poem, where he played on Johnny Carson, I think. Anyways, you do have an assignment for me that I will have due at the end of the week. It's called Sound and Poetry. I think there's like 2 poems on this that I'll have you look at, but it's all under the same thing. I will also have a journal posting for you guys later that we will have for Wednesday, but hopefully we'll have that by tomorrow. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys. Just as a quick ending, if any of you again are having trouble getting this stuff done, or you have questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I have my Google Meet on that channel open, so if you need to meet with me and you want to do a face-to-face or just an email, whatever's fine with me. Anyways, I hope you guys have a pleasant week, and I'm excited to see you on Tuesday. All right, thanks.